Hello, hello. How is everybody? You. Nice to see you. Yay! Happy Saturday. I'm so excited. I'm actually shaking. I haven't actually seen beautiful dad and Juzzy since Christmas. My heart's just jumping out of my chest. So thank you so much, guys. We're reuniting, especially today, or for our beautiful Twitch tribe. So it's very, very special. I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown. My dad is an international entrepreneur in entertainment, sports, film and television, musical theatre, and dance companies. He's presented stellar productions such as Julio Iglesias, Torval and Dean, Cirque du Soleil, Ike and Tina Turner, John Denver, Kiss, Rudolph Nureyev, the Bolshoi Ballet, Black Sabbath, Baryshnikov, Bob Marley and the Wailers, Disney on Parade, Sesame Street Live, The Great Moscow Circus, Shirley Bassey, the list goes on, Alice Cooper, Meatloaf, Olivia Newton-John, Simon and Garfunkel, oh my goodness, the Harlem Globetrotters, The Man from Snowy River, with the beautiful Kirk Douglas, and James Brown. Now these are just a few of his credits. Can you believe it? I'm like, if I read the whole list, we'd be here for a few hours. And his beautiful wife, Justine Summers, is one of the most majestic principal ballerinas that I've ever seen dance. In 1995, Justine won a scholarship that enabled her to study with Gelsey Kirkland in New York. In 1996, she was Australian of the Year. She was offered a contract from the Australian Ballet at the age of 16, and at the age of 26, she was awarded the highest ranking position in the Australian Ballet. Additionally, in 2005, Justine won a Helpman Award for the Best Female Dancer in a ballet or dance work. Are you guys all ready to meet my beautiful dad and his amazing wife? I'm going to need some yeah, bring on the Edgleys. So they're waiting in Zoom for us, so let me go find them for you. Do-do-do-do. Hi, guys.
Hello,
Hello,
can you hear me?
hello. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. How are you?
All the better in seeing you, darling. It's been too long.
Nice to see you. What's been going on in your world?
Same as you, busy, busy, busy.
We've got people chiming in. We've got Jake Edgley in the room. I think you guys might recognize that name. We also have Mark Edgley in the room. We also have Jenny in the room. That's just three of us. And then we've also got people chiming in from Germany, the UK, Toronto, Australia, Minnesota, New York. They're coming in from far and near, guys. So everyone in the chat room is sending you lots and lots of love, Dad and Jas.
Uh,
So
it's very
we're
exciting to be able to see you. We're so far away, darling.
I know. I said to the guys in Twitch before you guys came into the room that I haven't seen you guys since Christmas. So my heart's pounding out of my chest. I'm very excited.
Oh,
So everyone wants to know, how did you two meet?
how did we meet?
Yes. What's the romantic story?
What was one of those dating services in those days? It wasn't.
No.
Oh,
No,
hardly.
no. We were doing a launch. We were bringing to Australia.
That's
Um,
the Edgley company.
we were bringing to Australia the arena version of Swan Lake, which was being performed by the English National Ballet. And the year prior to it, we decided we'd be involved with the Australian Ballet in Australia to have them as part of that tour. So they showed to all their subscribers when they launched their new season the year before, which would have been in 1998 or thereabouts. They showed pieces of what they were going to be presenting themselves for that coming year, including our big arena spectacular Swan Lake. And they showed little snippets and little pieces. And there was this amazing, gorgeous blonde dancer who was in part of it, right, who was a
Oh.
principal in the Australian Ballet at that time. I thought, wow, that's what a gorgeous looking sort. And that was that. And that was like, then,
Done.
and that was it. But I never forgot that. And then how long after, darling? When did you go to? You came back and you had your picture taken in the
Took
paper.
a year before I think we met. I came back from New York and he used the excuse of
No, so there was a picture of she'd been touring in America, and there was a picture of her in the paper, because she'd hurt her leg. She was having trouble with her feet from dancing, and there she was in the paper. And I thought, that's that gorgeous dancer that I saw a year or so ago when we were launching the ballet tour. So it took me a little bit of skullduggery to try and find her phone number.
because you know Agel.
What did? Yeah.
I mean, you brought up with Agel Xena. She was my teacher from 12 or 13. So she was also teaching us in the company. So you can imagine when Michael was saying, "Oh, do you
no!
Yes.
Oh my!
Oh, can you get her number for me?" And she's like,
Wait.
"No, right? Yeah." He was asking Agel for my number.
But she wouldn't give it to me. She wouldn't give the number to me.
I'm not surprised.
She's very protective.
She's probably trying to protect you, Justine.
But eventually, a secretary of mine who used to work with the Australian Ballet, who was very competent, I said, "Look, can you get me Justine's number?" And
So you went around Agel.
Yeah, Agel wouldn't do it. So,
but he left a message with the company. So when I had a message on Michael Edgley would like to be in contact with you, I'm like, oh, maybe it's a work business, or, you know. Of course, I thought it was.
Cool.
So I rang him and said, "Hello, I'm Justine," you know, and we just, you know, our conversations just hit it off. We found we're really interested in each other. And then after the second time, like an hour on the phone, he says, "Oh, I'd like to take you out to dinner." And I'm like, "Okay, sure."
Ooh.
And then
and that's how it all started. And we've been together now. It'll be 20 years this November.
But what was so beautiful was the way he talked about his children. You know, he didn't hide the fact that he actually had children. He talked beautifully about you guys, and it just made my heart melt. I thought, oh, what a fan.
And I even told her what a nice ex-wife
he had.
Which is interesting in itself because
ex-wife.
Your viewers may find it interesting. It was interesting in itself because Jenny, who is my ex-wife, and put on Justine's 30th birthday party for us. She put this big spread
Beautiful.
on. When all the members of the Australian Ballet were dancing in Brisbane, we were living an hour away from Brisbane, or Jenny had a property away.
At the Hideaway, you know, the Hideaway.
And she threw this party with all the Australian Ballet dancers.
They busked the dancers down to the property, and Jenny and Rick.
And they happened to be having a season in Brisbane, which coincided with her birthday. So they all came down, and Jenny put on this lovely.
Good on you, Mum.
Yeah. So we hit it off. Or that's what our kids call Jenny. Hit it off very well. Yeah.
I can hear the boys. Are they?
Oh, sorry.
Chilling?
Yes, boys.
No. Let's say hello. Are they there?
Boys, come over and say hello.
Because Riv and Kai with Jake and Mark are watching you in the chat room right now. So say hi, and so's Jenny. So give them a big wave.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So just to clarify, chat room, this is Kai. How old are you, Kai? 6. He's the youngest brother. And then Riv, how old are you?
10.
And then you're 10. So then you're the next one up. And then we have Summer, who's actually, she's on a sleepover because she's 13 and she's sleeping over because she went and watched the footy last night. I said, where's Summer? Where's little Sums? So this is the younger crew, and then we've got some of the old rat bags hanging out in the chat room. We've got Edge and Jake and Jenny, and maybe Cappy might pop in soon too. She might be in there as well. So say hi. Hi
everyone.
I miss you.
We miss you all.
We miss you. Are you guys on holidays right now?
Last day. They go back to school tomorrow.
What have you been doing on holidays?
Athletics training, tumbling training. Whoops.
Summer ballet every day nearly.
Yeah.
She's a buddy. She's like she and Justine are like sisters now.
Wow. I've seen the photos now. She's amazing. The photos are so beautiful. It's just it's extraordinary. So what I wanted to ask you guys, do you think the kids, because they're so in your bubble, will they follow in your footsteps of being grand entrepreneurs and ballerinas and gymnasts?
Mark is already basically, he works very closely with me with our current tour of the Great Moscow Circus, which is touring Australia. He's basically taking over from me, which is great. And he's got a beautiful wife, Tanya, who you've spoken to before. And he has a wonderful relationship with our partners who provide all the tent and equipment. And he runs that, basically lives there full time with it. They are in hibernation at the moment while we're waiting for this dreaded disease to right itself, God willing, and we can all move on with our lives. But and then after Mark, we've got, of course, we've got Sasha and Cappy and Gigi and
Yay!
Jake,
The golden child.
Jake, the golden child.
But what about the little ones? Do you think? Because obviously now Rivs he's still doing gymnastics, which he's amazing at. Yeah, so he's kind of following in your footsteps, Juzzy.
Yeah, they're all doing what they love. I mean, obviously, I did put them into ballet and gym just because they were my loves. But you know, we let them try a lot of different things. But yeah, Summer's obviously loving dancing, but she's doing very well at school. But she's interested in filmmaking.
Oh,
yeah.
Watch out!
I know. So that's very
you're in
interesting.
Trouble. Do you think she'll she's obviously very passionate about ballet. Do you think she'll follow in your footsteps in that direction?
I don't know. I mean, we'd encourage her if she wants, but there's so many dancers out there now and not enough jobs, so
yeah,
she's got to finish her schooling.
As Sasha,
yes.
Sasha and you guys have always said, you've got to follow your passion, and that's what she'll do, and that's what we want you all to do, and you have, and
right.
it's, let's see how it turns
Time
out.
will tell.
Time will tell.
Well, you guys have always been very supportive and very understanding of. It's been a very like the two things that have stuck in my vision have been pursue your passion and follow your bliss. But then, Dad, you always hammered home, work until you cannot work anymore, and then get up and keep work until you drop, and get up and keep working. So I think there's been a nice. That's two really great elements to do what we love, but work tirelessly to achieve it. So I think you guys did good.
Oh, well, yeah, everyone can only do the best they can do. And we all make a lot of mistakes along the way, and hope to cause not too much damage. And
never. The Edgleys cause damage? Hey, Dad, remember you used to on repeat tell us the story of how you started from scratch and how you would collect, was it Coca-Cola bottle lids and collect them up?
Yeah, look,
was that true, or were you just making that up?
No, that's not. That is absolutely true. It was Coca-Cola bottles. In those days, talking in currencies that they relate to today, you would get 2 cents, or say 5 cents, the equivalent of 5 cents, to return a Coca-Cola bottle. And I was a mad keen tennis player growing up. Wasn't very good at it, but I loved it. And we used to go to, when all the big sporting events came to Perth, when we were living in those days, and they used to have the Davis Cup played there, and big tournaments played there. They used to want ball boys and ball girls, or mainly ball boys in those days. And we used to, with ball boys for some of the greats of those times. John Newcomb was just growing up. He was one of the best juniors. There were people like, oh goodness gracious me, I can't remember. Not so much John McEnroe. It was the era before that, but it was a wonderful time. And Mel Anderson, Rod Laver, Ashley Cooper. Neil Fraser, these sort of people, and they used to come to Perth every summer and play tournaments, and normally Australia would play the semi-final of the Davis Cup in Perth, and then they'd end up playing the final in Melbourne, which was the Australian Open, and this was the build-up. So we used to go around and collect all the empty Coca-Cola bottles, sacks of them, and take them back to wherever.
For how much?
What would have been the equivalent of about 5 cents today?
Oh my gosh, Dad!
Yeah.
So you go.
That's how we earned our pocket money, and And but it was wonderful time. It was a wonderful time growing up. And it was,
I just think it's amazing that you go from that, and to me, you've created an empire. And you know, before we went live, guys, Dad was like, "Oh, I don't know if you could call it that," and I will call it that because I don't know. People ask me how to compare you to someone in our day, and you know, a younger version or a new version of you, and I can't because what you did was amazing. You literally, I believe, introduced extraordinary levels of culture to Australia, as did you, Juzzy. Like the achievements that you guys have accomplished in a lifetime is phenomenal. What in your heart and soul do you believe is your greatest achievement?
look, I think it, it's an interesting story how it all came about. I was brought up in Perth, as I said, and I worked with my father. And while he was dying, he had cancer, and the worse he became, the more responsibility he gave me to do. So I was kind of had to learn very quickly, very early. And so by the time he passed away, when I was only around about 22, 23, but I'd had a lot of opportunity of working with him then, and it grew from there. And he used to bring shows to Australia, and he's for his theatre that he ran in Perth in those days. And then I sort of picked it up and went on with it from that. I woke up one day and I thought I really was quite proud of myself because over the years, I think I certainly in Australia was the only producer, impresario, promoter, which you would call, that presented every area. I did rock and roll, I did classical ballet, opera, musicals, plays, ice shows, sporting events, circuses, made movies, and I think all of that in itself was great to have being able to have done that with the help of a very good team of people, I might add. And your mother was in the early days. She was one of the best publicists in Australia, if not the best publicist Australia has ever seen in relating to promoting shows and publicising shows. And she did a fantastic job. Um, and we toured shows everywhere. We took Torval and Dean, we toured them over the world for 10 years. We even took Torval and Dean to England. And of course, Torval and Dean at the peak of their at the peak of their success, just after they'd won the gold medal, the Winter Olympics in Sarajevo, they were like royalty in England. In fact, to have a group of Australians, brash Australians, coming to London and Nottingham and Birmingham and these places and presenting their
Idols, yeah.
Treasure.
It was something to be seen. And we opened the tour at Wembley in I think it was around about 85, Wembley in London, which was their big arena then. And we had Princess Di there and everybody else. And it was a wonderful achievement, that in itself. And I think the other thing that was good was making The Man from Snowy River. That was
You had Kirk Douglas in that,
four or
yeah.
five movies. We made 4 or 5 movies, and they were very interesting times.
Was Kirk Douglas in that, Dad?
Kirk Douglas was in The Man from Snowy River, yes,
Okay.
and in fact, I pushed very strongly to have Kirk Douglas in and the reason why is because at that time, Australia did not have any superstar performers. They didn't have the Helmsworths. They didn't have the, all these people.
What do you mean the Hemsworths? What about the Edgleys?
Mel Gibsons. They didn't have anybody. I mean, Mel Gibson was just starting to come on the scene. But now, of course, and so I wanted.
Were you even born then?
Yes.
When he was making that?
I was born. Wasn't I, Dad? I know for a Coolangatta Gold, we just moved to the Gold Coast for that one, so I know I was around for that. I feel like I was around for.
Yeah, you were there. You definitely.
The Snowy River.
Tiny
you
though.
were definitely there. But we wanted an American in it because
so sell it overseas.
In those days, the government gave you great assistance in making movies because they wanted an Australian film industry, and so but it had to really be totally Australian. The script had to really be written by Australian, the music, the whole thing. And so I had to fight very hard to bring in Kirk, because I felt if we were going to sell this thing in America, then they had to have at least one identity that they could relate to.
Yeah.
And it worked very, very well, and it was a big success in America, and we're very proud of that. And as a family and as a company, having done that, that was quite an achievement.
Well, it's quite an Australian iconic movie, isn't it, Gigi?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. And what about you, Jazzy? What's your when you go to bed at night? What do you go? Yeah, that was an amazing moment in my life. I mean, it's hard to choose for you guys because there's a gazillion amazing moments. But what do you believe is your greatest achievement?
What was I going to say? It's just gone out of my head. But it's not until you step away from it that you actually, because that's all you've known, and it's a bit like you growing up in this household. It was just normal for you. You know, it was normal. And so dancing, that whole life touring and living with people and dancing with people, being 24/7 together, it was just normal until you step away. You go, you get a new appreciation. Wow, I was lucky to do what I did, you know, what I love to do.
Because I don't think people understand how strenuous and physically challenging and emotionally and spiritually, like you literally live, breathe, sweat from the second you wake up to the second you fall asleep. It's intense. The life.
It is intense, but you don't mind putting that in as long as you love it. The last 4 years, I think I was struggling with injuries and that.
Last 4 years of her career.
Yeah.
That was around about 2000.
So, because originally, so you guys were in Hobart, and then your Hobart teacher advised you to go for the Victorian Arts College.
I was Sydney born in Melbourne. Then my family moved to Tasmania, and it was whilst I was there that they thought I should audition for this school. And so we thought, okay, I'll audition. And when I got in, I had to leave home, my family in Tassie, and then go back to Melbourne by myself. So I'll just shut the door.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Because
I think I've presented a lot of ballet companies over the years. In fact, I went through phases where I wanted to do certain things, and excuse me, I ended up doing all the great ballet companies, bringing them all to Australia. The Royal Ballet, the Alvin Ailey Company from America,
Bolshoi,
the Bolshoi,
Kira Stuttgart,
the Dance City of Harlem. Many great ballet companies, and because I felt Australia was lacking in great dancers, the Australian ballet at that time, excuse me, going through that era, the Australian ballet was noted for beautiful costumes, beautiful sets, beautiful productions, but they didn't have so many great dancers. And then by me bringing all these fantastic ballet stars, Fontaine, Uraev, Baryshnikov, and all the companies,
Maya,
it lifted the standard of the Australian ballet enormously. And today, Australia, the Australian Dance Company, Australian Ballet Company, is noted as one of the great ballet companies in the world. And in that second tier, I mean, you've got the Royal Ballet, and you've got the Paris Opera Ballet, and you've got the American Ballet Theatre, and then there's the next level, like the Dallas Houston Company, London Festival Ballet, the Leningrad Ballet. They're all sort of that next level, and the Australian Ballet sits very nicely in that company.
Dad, is it true that when Eric passed away and you had to go to Russia, and were you only 24 when you went to negotiate with the Ministry of Culture to tour the shows?
Yes, I wouldn't have been much older. I mean, the moment.
What's that like, walking into a room when you're only 24 with the Ministry of Culture?
My father was very clever because he'd already arranged for me to go to Russia prior to that. So I'd been there in 1965, and he died in 67. 1965 was the year that he brought the first Moscow Circus to Australia. And the Moscow Circus was an enormous success.
Wow.
And it was so in England, in America as well. It was the first time Russian circus ever left the Soviet Union in those days was, I think, in 1956, when a very famous promoter from America called Morris Shelton, he took the Moscow Circus to America, and it was an enormous, huge success. And then in '65, we brought it to Australia and New Zealand for the first time, New Zealand a little later, and we toured it all over the world. We even did one tour of the Moscow Circus in America with a very, very good producer over there by the name of Steve Lieber. And Steve Lieber's company and ours toured it across America. And that's when I met someone who you may know or may be familiar with. That's when I met Donald Trump.
Oh, your bestie.
Yeah, we opened the tour. Steve and I opened the tour at the Trump Casino in.
Wow, and you met him?
At Atlantic City.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go.
So I was chatting to Mum because she's got lots of good stories, and forever we've wanted to create together, or we want you to create. So then you can employ me as your lead actress. The movie The Impresario, about your travels and your adventures, and because our family, quite often I'll be sitting around with friends and explaining part of our life, and they're like, "You're making this stuff up. That's not even, you couldn't even make this stuff up. It's so amazing. It's so extraordinary." So Mum was saying that one time you were in Russia and you went to meet the prima ballerina for dinner of the Bolshoi Ballet. Maya, can you help me with her last name?
Yeah, Maya Plisetskaya. At that time, during the let's see, the 60s, 70s, that period, she was the top ballerina in top of the Bolshoi in Russia.
And you were meant to go to dinner, right? And she said she was horrified because she didn't have anything to give you because the economic crisis was so intense. People would line up for hours, and she pulled out the Order of Lenin and chewed on it, Mum said. And she said, I have this, which is the highest distinction, that you can get for a citizen in the Soviet, but I can't eat. I can't get food.
Yeah, she did. We did have dinner with her, and
So Mum was exaggerating?
No. Mum was getting it. She was on the money. And she'd been awarded 3 times the Medal of Honor, the Lenin Medal of Honor, and that was like as high as award you could get in Russia.
She did dance for a long time though, like in her 50s or 60s. Like she danced for a long time.
But this specific event occurred, and she picked up this award and bit on it, and she said, I can get the best award, but I can't get access to the best food. So she still had food on the table, but they didn't eat like we did in those days. And she was one of the most famous people in Russia. Or in the Soviet Union. You've got to remember, for the younger people, there was that the Soviet Union was a very strictly controlled
communist
collection of countries, because they'd taken over so many countries over the year, during that era. But it was very interesting, and that something taught me. One of their invasions taught me something, Gigi. I mean, in 1968, we had the Moiseev company touring Australia and New Zealand. The Moiseev were a magnificent, they still are today, a magnificent folk dance company, right? They really were. And we brought them to Australia just after the Soviet Union, or Russia, had invaded Czechoslovakia.
Right.
And that's when I realized that for people that believe sport and politics don't mix, it's not right.
Right.
And we were having demonstrations, and we got through the tour okay. But there are a lot of unhappy people in Australia because, what had Russia had done. And we got through the tour okay, but that taught me a very important lesson. That was not just to concentrate on Russian talent. And that's when I started to broaden out and do other shows and from other countries. We still had a wonderful relationship with the Soviet Union. We still brought all those companies out. But I didn't want to be put in a position again where all we had was Russian product. And if they did it again, we'd be in strife. And they did do it again because they invaded Afghanistan. And at that time, which went on for about 8 or 9 years, the Australian government would not let anything from Russia come into Australia. Anything.
Yeah, it was
Anything
very.
from
And
caviar
remember,
to-
you had dancers that came.
producing international circus programs and Disney on parades and all this sort of thing.
And didn't, when you brought out Nureyev and Baryshnikov and some of the Russian artists, they tried to run away?
No.
Defect,
Did they slightly try to defect?
When I brought Nureyev to Australia, he had already defected, but I brought Baryshnikov was coming up as the next Nureyev, and I do remember having a conversation with him when he was in Australia. And we became quite friendly, Misha and I, as I did with Nureyev. I greatly admired Nureyev. He's a very clever person, not just as a dancer. He had a wonderful mind. But I said to Misha when he arrived in Australia, I said, "Now, Misha, don't you defect on me here, will you?" He said, "Why would I defect?" He said, "Why would I defect in Australia? Because I wouldn't get any world
media
attention, any great exposure from it."
That's
so
amazing.
he had every intention of at some point to defect. And so 2 or 3 years later, he was touring. He just finished a big season in New York. And I think he went up to, he went to Toronto or Montreal or somewhere, and he defected there. So, and he got all the coverage he wanted.
Wow. So I just wanted to pop back to the Torvundine night. I remember being, that was amazing because you guys, that opening night was extraordinary. And I remember right at the end, you let Sash Cap and I go on the ice on our bums, and we got to slide around on the Torvundine ice. We're like, our parents rock, yeah. So Juzzy, what's it like being Australian of the Year?
I think it was more Victorian of the Year. No, it's nice to be recognised. It was really, yeah.
She was recognised as the best Australian dancer of the year, particularly because when she retired, she came back and did a piece, a 20-minute piece, with a partner who she'd partnered with for many years, and she was awarded, like each year they have in Australia what they call the Helpman Awards: best actor, best actress, best, so forth and so on. Best
for the Helpman Awards.
Yeah, and Justine was awarded the best dancer of the year. So.
But I thought in 1996, Juzzy, you were awarded the Australian of the Year as well. Is that?
Or the Victorian, I think, for a state, not the whole of Australia.
Oh, I was like, this is amazing.
She's done pretty amazing things dance-wise in her life.
So how awesome was it coming back after, so you'd been retired for about 3 years from the Australian Ballet, and then you came back to do unspoken dialogues?
Yeah, no, it was lovely actually, just concentrating on the one ballet, being the creative process with Stephen Baines and Stephen Heathcote. And yeah, we got to tour around Australia, and it was lovely.
Stephen Baines created the ballet. And
Stephen Heathcote was my partner.
Was her partner. And it was a gorgeous piece.
Yeah, it was about relationships. I think it was about a 10-minute pas de deux. It was quite puffy, but we got to tour that. So it was a nice sort of send-off because I finished quite abruptly. I sort of disappeared, and so it was nice to sort of do a farewell tour, basically.
Yeah, and in the early days, when I was researching you, you were mentioning that you had a passion for gymnastics as well, but then to keep up the gymnastics and then also the I think Sky's coming.
We got a visitor.
Say hi.
Hi, Sky. Hello.
Do you remember your grandpa?
I don't think she does.
Wait,
hi, darling.
Hello,
darling. Hi, Sky.
Do
you remember Grandpa?
And Juzzy.
Hello.
Say hi.
Hi, darling.
Hi. Say
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Trying to figure
She's
it out.
used to this television business.
She's
It's
like,
just
hi.
second nature to her.
Usually
Hi.
she sees
Hi,
Jake
darling.
every week, so she's like, where's Jake? Can you say hi? Say hi. Hi.
She's gone quiet.
Today she will be doing her piece with mime.
It's silence. Hi,
Is it
gorgeous.
Jazzy?
You're growing up, geez.
Yeah.
They grow up too
She's
quickly.
speechless. One sec, guys. Oh, sorry, Bubba. Boop. Baby flying out. Whee! Whoa. So, Jazzy, in the early days, so you also were quite passionate about gymnastics, even more so than ballet. So, what led you into the direction of ballet?
I suppose my mum always loved ballet. She put me into ballet, obviously, for grace, deportment, and musicality, and also thought, oh, she'd love to go to the ballet with me, to have like someone to sit in the audience with, but didn't realise she'd actually still be by herself watching someone on stage. But no, Dad finally would start to come to the ballet with her so they could watch me. But yeah, so her brother used to pay for her ballet lessons when she was younger. So she always was passionate about dance. I just didn't understand why I was doing it, because we left Melbourne before I got to see a live ballet. So, in a church hall, back, doing these exercises on the back of a chair.
Like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah, I was like, what am I doing this for? Whereas gymnastics was a lot more exciting. You're hanging upside down, you're doing twirls around the bar, and you're doing flips on the beam. I loved it. But I let the audition decide for me, really. I was like, I knew I was getting high in both, so I did have to make a decision. So the audition, once I was accepted, I thought, okay, this sounds like Fame. Do you know the movie Fame?
Yes.
Dance around at the boarding school, and yeah. I thought it sort of sounded a bit like that. So off I went. Yeah.
Perfect. So how many years all up were you dancing?
Oh, seriously, from 12, and then
That's
full
amazing.
time sort of from 15. I had to do school by correspondence, and I was flatting by myself, so I had to clean. There was 4 of us girls living in an apartment, so we had to share the cleaning, grocery shopping, cooking. I was trying to do my year 11 by correspondence, full time dancing. I was exhausted, but yeah, it's all good grounding.
And so then you went into the Australian ballet school,
Ooh,
and
that's right.
at 16.
Yes, at 16. So it was a 3-year course back then. But during my second year, I got to do some corps ballet work with the actual company. And by the end of that year, the director gave me a contract. Like,
How
a
amazing!
job.
So you
I was just
didn't finish.
I didn't
That's
finish.
amazing.
No, I didn't graduate from the ballet school. I got
But you
taken early with a job.
That's amazing. And what was the first ballet that you like, the first one you did with the company?
It was Paquita. It was a very, very classical one in a tutu. And would you believe, this is funny, I was a ballerina, but I never felt comfortable in a tutu.
Because you were more used to gymnastics, that
I
kind of
think
vibe?
so. I liked the more flowy dresses where I could actually really move. The tutus are quite stiff in the bodice, so you feel like you're in a straight jacket, yes. But yeah, I obviously had to wear tutus. But yeah, Paquita, and then the first tour was to Asian countries. America, the Australian dancers toured America a lot.
Yeah.
But
And one of your other passions is traveling. You just adore traveling as well, right? Because you guys were in South Africa for the circus for some time.
for a year, yes, presented a ballet company
Yes, we presented a ballet.
Always for the ballet.
Yeah,
and a circus.
and the Moscow Circus we presented in
What
South.
was it like living over there?
Well, I think we worked it out that we'd spread about a 6. It wasn't quite a year. It was about a 6-month period over a 2-year. We spent 6 months there over about a 2-year period.
So it was a year altogether, but
Yeah,
6 months.
Two
6 months.
6 months. That's right.
Touring the circus first, and then the ballet company, then the circus.
Yeah, and South Africa's the most amazing country.
Very similar to Australia, actually, but
Fantastic
beautiful.
country.
Yeah,
I mean,
dangerous.
Dangerous?
Yeah, dangerous, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But a fabulous country.
And the game reserves are wonderful. To be with all those wild animals.
We drove twice from Cape Town to Johannesburg, which takes you from one end of the country to the other, and it was just an amazing country. And then, as Justine said, it's so similar to Australia that you'd think you'd see kangaroos and why don't we have lions here, sort of thing. That was the terrain, and the geography was just so similar.
So Jazzy, back to the dancing for a bit. At what point did you go, I'm done?
There was a few reasons. I didn't really get on with the new artistic director that had taken over. I'd met your dad, and also my feet were becoming painful, but I put that down to being miserable at work. So I continued going for 4 more years, not enjoying it, always crying, just paying the mortgage. Yeah, so it took 4 years to really come to the point. And Michael says, don't do this specifically for me. Your parents will never forgive me. No, but I was just like, no, I'd had enough. I was feeling sick. I was just, I was taking too much medication for my feet to try and get through it. So yeah, I'd had enough.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that what you guys go through, it's so intense. And so 4 years, was it painful every
It's a whole
performance to
lifestyle. You
dance?
do give up your whole life for it, if you know what I mean. You live and breathe it.
Yeah.
They're really athletes, and it's even harder than athletes because not only do you have to be athletic,
You got to make it look easy.
you have to look like it's easy and like you're
Flow
enjoying
through.
it. You have to remember all these steps.
We used to go to these after parties, and people would say, so what do you do during the day? What's your day job? I'm like,
Nothing.
we're in here from 8:30 in the morning doing gym workouts. Then we've got classes and rehearsals for upcoming ballets. And at night, we're performing a ballet. But during the day, we're doing other ballets, getting ready for the next program. And the Australian Ballet, we did tour a lot. Like, we've squeezed in a lot of shows. So I think that's why my body wore out quicker than other dancers overseas. We
Yeah.
squeezed in a lot in the year. Yeah.
And then for the final performance, you came back for the 50th anniversary for the Australian Ballet.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
What was that
Camilla and
like?
Charles were at that. So that was wonderful, but I don't think I was as fit, or I think just my ligaments and that were getting too old. So I ripped my hip in a couple of places. I still
Oh
perform
my
this
God.
season, but my hips are really quite bad now, just from
So
doing that.
would you go back? You're more into
Teaching now, yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
And she's a very good teacher, I might add. It's easy to say that, but I know I've heard from so many people how good.
I do enjoy it. I do enjoy
good a
giving back
teacher she is.
everything that I have learnt now. So yeah.
So the questions are coming in the chat room, guys. I've been so focused on asking my questions. I haven't even been looking at the chat room. So I better let these guys have a chance. So Joe from Toronto wants to know, how did Justine find it joining a large, well-known family like the Edgleys? And also let it be known that we're all nuts. So Justine is amazing for putting up with all of us. We're crazy.
Yeah, somebody said whether the Australia's version of the Fockers. Meet the Fockers.
But we have a good heart, and we're nuts in a good way. We're not nuts in a scary way. Let it be known.
No, we have wonderful hearts. We all love each other very much, and stick by each other and do the best we can. But when we're all together, for outside people, it's quite something. I mean, they don't know how.
I think it was meant to be. If I'd met Michael a couple of years before that, I don't think I would have even allowed myself to go out with him. You know what I mean? But because I think not that dance was doing it enough for me. I think because I was ending my career, I was opening my horizon a little bit. So I was starting to sort of, I felt like, I was ready to meet people outside and just broaden my horizons a little bit.
Yeah, because other than that, it must have been hard because you worked non-stop doing your ballet to actually
Most of the
meet
relationships
people
are within the
outside.
company. Yeah, it's very hard to meet people outside.
Yeah.
But, I was so focused before. I don't think I would have allowed me even go out for a date with Michael. And actually, Michael too. That sounds terrible. He was everything what I wasn't looking for. He was. I was 30 at the stage. Yeah, I was 30 at that stage, and I thought, no, I'm not going to meet anyone over 40. So he was 53. So he didn't tick that box, and he had children, and he'd been married before. So he ticked all the wrong boxes.
You're like, perfect. So, Dad, we've got a question from Captain Calvin in Germany, and we have lots of respect for Captain because in Germany, at the moment it's like 2 a.m. So he's a frequent chatter here, so we love him very dearly. And he wants to know, were you always absolutely sure that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? And did you ever have a moment where you thought, oh, this isn't working out how I planned?
No, I loved the idea of show business. I loved it. I had a taste of it from seeing what my father was doing, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly that I wanted to be involved in the entertainment industry, as was my father. There's never a doubt in my mind. When I finished school in 1961, at the end of 61, I spent a year in an accounts office, accountancy office, which I thoroughly hated.
I didn't know that.
At the same time, I was doing some accounting at night school. And my father was overseas at the end of '62, looking for shows and things. And I managed to sneak in. I'd already quit my job, and I hadn't told him. But I snuck into his office, and I was helping his accountant, sort of as a secondary accountant. And that's how I managed to get my foot in the door. And he was very cross because he really wanted my elder brother to be involved in the theatre, and
Philip.
my brother
he wasn't interested.
He wasn't interested in the business side of it. He wanted to be
an actor.
He was a very, very, very well-known child actor in Australia, and he wanted just to be an actor. He didn't want to know the business.
That's where I get it from.
Whereas I never wanted to be an actor, but I was very interested in the business side of it. So no, I mean we had a number of hurdles along the way, many hurdles, but we had some wonderful successes and good times as well. But when you're in your 20s and you've got a lot of strength and your passion, and you feel invincible. And I did a lot of things that if I look back on myself now, at my age now, I never would do them. But my God, did we really do that?
Yes.
So, but
you're so young.
Yeah, it was young, but I was full of energy, and it enabled me to do the things I did.
I remember like so many cool. It's amazing. Like going backstage, traveling around with the Moscow Circus and with the monkeys, and one of the artists named one of the monkeys Gigi. So and it was the cheekiest monkey, and then we'd be like, then you brought Cirque du Soleil into town, and Australia had never seen. Remember the Cirque du Soleil? Oh my gosh, the opening night for that, was it Sultan Banco? And Australia was in shock, but like Cirque du Soleil had hit Australia, and it was insane. And I remember the celebrations and the after parties with the promoter Guy, and he'd travel around in his private jet with his decks.
He's an amazing individual. He's an amazing individual. He's one of the people I most admire in the world in the industry. What he did with creating Cirque du Soleil and where they came from, how it all began. He was
from street performing to
the same
$1 billion shows. Fantastic, unbelievable. He's a great man of the theatre.
So, were there spies on tour? Why was our garage blown up?
Well,
who did that?
It's true.
Gigi?
It's true. It's true. They did send members of the KGB would always be
following you as soon as you hit Russia.
No, but not obviously. It was they'd come along as a company manager or something. But if it was a big company like the Bolshoi, where they had 100 dancers, they'd send more than one KGB fellow. And
that's insane.
There was always stories about, that guy in the back, right down at the back, they're holding the spear. He must be KGB.
We're smoking a cigarette with a hat.
But yes, they did, and they did. They wouldn't travel without any time any international company left the Soviet Union for a tour. There were always members of the KGB there, and it was a pretty tough sort of situation, because also they encouraged people, the artists themselves, to sort of spy on each other, so report on each other. So every time they returned to Russia, they had to do a report on who did what and who played up and who was, and they'd all, which was a dreadful thing, to be able to put in someone, your best friend, in a position where you don't know whether what they'd be saying about you. And that was a pretty intense situation. And if you had a fling with any of them, they wouldn't let them tour again. They wouldn't let them leave the country.
Wow. I'm not going to say anything about that comment.
No, but that's the truth. Like if they had a fling with someone who wasn't part of that company, they wouldn't. Once they got back to Russia, they'd be severely
chastised
and told that
Not going to tour again.
not be allowed to tour again.
Wow. So I remember some fine, fun memories growing up in the Point Piper house and
Oh,
Cappy.
that's the blowing up bit. Well, we're
Oh,
in,
yeah.
yeah, well, it got to the point in the mid 70s where we were doing so much. I mean, we were doing so much. Had so many shows go on that, and living in Perth, and I love Perth. I think Perth's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. But having to fly from Perth to Melbourne or Perth to Sydney practically on a weekly basis, um, I got to the point where we were we decided we'd move to Sydney, and we did, and we built a lovely home there on the harbour. And it was at the opening night of one of the shows that someone came and sort of threw a inflammable device at the garage and set two of the cars on fire. And we never really knew whether it was someone who was anti-Russian or whatever, but we never got to the sort of truth of it. But it did happen.
As you do, as it does. I mean, honestly. Because I remember in that Point Piper house, Cap and I, the cruise ships would come by and you could hear them on the speakerphone going, "This is Michael Edgley's house, the great entrepreneur." And so Cap and I would time it, and I don't know if you knew that we did this, and we'd jump into the pool. And remember, the pool had a big portal, like a glass portal. So we'd jump down to the portal and we'd take our swimmers down and would moon the cruise ships as they went by, Dad.
Well, they were
Sorry.
the fairies.
Sorry about that.
They were the fairies.
See, it doesn't phase him.
Yeah, the fairies.
Came by and they used to comment on it. But no, then I fell in love with the Gold Coast because that's when we were making that movie, The Coolangatta Gold. And I spent 6 months travelling from Sydney to the Gold Coast. And the Gold Coast was like a young Perth. So that's when, and at that time, your mum and I were starting to separate. And we all moved up to the Gold Coast. And I think we all believed that was the right decision at the time. It's a lovely place to live. Certainly a lovely place to bring up children.
Jake wanted me to ask you about the Bob Marley story.
Jake wanted me to ask me about Bob Marley.
When he got shot.
Radio, and he was one of the. We did a few of those what we called contemporary artists with Bob Marley. There was Kiss. There was John Denver, who's just the most delightful man, just the fantastic man. But no, John, the Bob Marley story is common knowledge that he was a cricket fanatic, and in fact he was playing cricket when he was home in Bermuda or wherever, and he noticed at the time that he had a growth between his toes, and it ended up being a melanoma, and he died shortly after that. But that's common knowledge, that story. But he was Tina Turner. We had her, Icon Tina Turner. He was nuts. She was really, really nice, good lady. Who were some of the others? Betty Davis was a nightmare.
Really? Why?
She was just very hard to handle. But some of the others you can say were. Margot Fontaine was a beautiful, beautiful person, and I became very friendly with Rudolf Nureyev. He was a genius, as I said. So I met some interesting people. We all met some interesting people.
How long did you travel around with Nureyev? Because he had an interesting story. Because he would have standing ovations and people applauding for.
Well, as everybody knows, or anybody that knew of that era, I mean, he was gay, and we used to have to, find people for him. And I'd met a woman in Sydney, in Adelaide actually, so that when ever Nureyev toured Australia, I'd ring her up and I'd say, could you find me some friends for Rudy, please?
Is it
so you're sort of, you have to be, if you're in the entertainment industry,
you have to be delicate.
Artists
with their high demands.
Artists require certain things for certain people.
Because
But he was
also,
a great guy. I have fantastic admiration for him.
but did you find a lot of these, like Mum was saying, a lot of the people that you toured with, like the big stars, were quite lonely when the spotlight went off, you know, where they
Yeah,
quite
well,
lonely.
Ruff was a classic example. He didn't have he would work 365 days of the year, and I mean 365 days of the year. He never wanted a night off, and because he didn't want to be lonely. He didn't want to be. He liked the the attention
The spotlight.
and all the. But like it's like everyone else in life. There's good people, bad people, nice people, not so nice people, and it's right across the board in life. And we met some really wonderful people. And we met some really, strange ones.
What was Mum was saying that you guys had to prepare iron, is this a true story, iron the newspapers for KISS, the New York Times, and they had to be delivered daily in the limousine or something like that? They had quite some bizarre demands.
At that time, they wanted the New York Times flown out from America and pressed on waiting on the back seat of their limousines.
Didn't Gene Simmons have...
And when they performed in the stadiums, we performed the outdoor stadiums, they wanted a swimming pool built in each stadium.
What?
Yeah, which they never used, by the way.
Wait, you built them a swimming pool?
Yeah, built portable swimming pool.
That's amazing. Which they never used. They were just screwing with you.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Oh my! And didn't Gene Simmons have a little bit of a crush on Mum, or is that a rumor?
You'd have to ask your mother.
Oh well, we'll get Mum on. Well, I'll have a chat to Mum. So, are you guys so in the industry that no one, like, have you ever had a moment, Juzzy, where you meet someone that you fangirl out over, or a dancer that you've always wanted to work with, or a artistic director, or...
No. Some of the companies that Michael brought out, it was lovely to meet the principal dancers that you'd always sort of admired from a distance or heard about or seen on videos. So it was lovely to meet them and, have dinner with them. And yeah, it's funny, after I left the Australian Ballet, Ross Stretton, my director, went to the Royal Ballet, and then Michael, of course, presented the Royal Ballet. So out came Ross Stretton, and here I'm having to be at the dinner table looking at my...
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh... So, and then there's a cool little story, Dad, in the early days, because originally wasn't our name White? Wasn't our last name White?
Yes, it's true. My father actually and his brother, they came from a white family, and in England we're going back in the 1900s. He worked with Charlie Chaplin, my father, on stage with Charlie Chaplin. They were called the 8 Lancashire Lads. They began as a dancing troupe. And then my father went on to, during that era of the 10s and 20s and 30s and 40s, vaudeville revue was very, very popular. And you had, and they were initially the White Brothers, and they saw their agent in London said, look, you can't be the White Brothers. There's too many whites around. You're going to have to change your name. So I don't know where the brother Clem, it was Clem Dorr, don't know where he got his name from. But when I first went back to London, or when I first visited London, my father said to me, go when you come out, go down to where the BBC is. And there's a little lane down there somewhere, and it's called Edgley Lane.
Huh?
He said, have a look at, because that's where I came out of the agent's office. This is my father speaking. He said, I came out of the agent's office. I looked up and we were in Edgley Lane, and I said, he said, that's where that will be. I'll be Eric Edgley. And that's how. And
my great-grandmother was a white family as well.
Oh, that's, wow.
I know. So we're the whites from England as well. We've got a line back there. So that's all very strange.
There you go.
Oh, and your grandmother, I've performed on stage with her, Edna.
Oh,
you know, when
yes.
she was the nurse in Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just in the company. I think I was only second year in the called a ballet, and there was a little Lily maiden, and yeah, Edna used to be in the same ballet, so we crossed.
Isn't that amazing?
I think that was just before we'd met, actually. So
Yeah, that's right.
So I knew of Edna Edgley, of course, and so I got to meet her and everything. But I did meet her later on, just before she passed. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long had Edna been dancing for, Dad?
Ooh.
Oh, she was the director of the Australian Ballet at the time, and
Williams.
Anne Williams. They were creating every now and then they'd create a new ballet, and they were creating Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, yes, because she would play the nurse.
And we were having dinner with Anne Williams one night, and on a totally related matter, I think it was she came along and we had one of our dance companies out here, and Edna and myself and Anne Williams were at dinner, and she said to Mum after we'd come out of the restaurant, because Mum was doing a few, she used to be a dancer, and or she'd always been a dancer. She said, "You'd be perfect for the role of the nurse in Romeo and Juliet."
And like she was in her 70s or 80s?
Oh, yeah, she's in her
70s or 80s.
70s. And I said to Mum, don't be so ridiculous.
Dad,
you can imagine Edna. Edna would have been, "Oh, darling,
I was just waiting.
I want to kick up my heels again."
So she did it, and she was very, very good.
She was gorgeous.
And Justine ended up performing with her.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
One thing which is worth mentioning is that we produced Beauty and the Beast in Australia.
Yeah,
We gave Hugh Jackman his first major role. He
Wow.
performed Gaston in The Beauty and the Beast in Australia, and that was one of his very first roles.
And there's a really beautiful at the end of it, we would say, "Dad, how does the beast turn into the prince or whatever?" And you'd be like, "You want to know?" And we're like, yeah, tell us. And you're like, "Magic." Go, Dad, come on, tell us.
Wasn't he? I can imagine.
All right, so wrapping it up, I just want to touch base on beautiful Marcel Marceau, because I remember doing a photo shoot with him. I've actually got it in the back here, and I obviously didn't know who he was, but I remember you guys, he kept shoving this like flower in my face, and then someone said, "Give her a cookie, maybe she'll smile if I have a cookie." So there's a photo back here, and I'm like, and I've got a cookie in my hand and a flower sort of shoved in, and Marcel's like what was he like?
He was challenging. He wasn't easy, but he was a nice guy. He was very demanding.
Oh, so he did speak now.
He was very demanding.
Oh, yeah, he just mimed everything from the beginning to the end.
Not in a bad way. He was a full time.
Oh, well, we've been so spoiled growing up with you guys, watching your beautiful shows, Juzzy and everything that Dad's taken us to. So when Kat moved over here, we would go, and she'd take me to Pantages to see Phantom of the Opera and Aladdin and stuff, and it just didn't have the same magic as when you're a kid. And we saw the best. It's a tough thing to live up to, because you guys really did set a very high standard.
But like you, when you saw it all the time, I don't think you probably fully appreciated it until now that he doesn't do so many shows. You were like, wow, we grew up through amazing times. I'm sure you appreciate it even more now, I think. Looking back.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
You understand it a bit more.
Yep. So I heard, Dad, you had a funny moment with Andy Warhol in a limousine.
Oh, no.
Can we take it the wrong way?
No, not at all. When Nureyev had finished one of our tours, he was going on to tour in America with I think it was with the Houston Ballet or one of those, and I flew back with him, and he invited me to dinner that night, and there was a group of us. There was his manager, his agent, who was a lovely, lovely guy called Shelley Gold, and Shelley's wife, and there was Rudy and Rudy's monsieur, who was a fantastic guy. He took him everywhere. He was like a football, like an osteopath chiropractor. He was fantastic. Rudy took him everywhere. He wouldn't go anywhere without him, and he because he worked on him 3 or 4 times a day to keep him, to try and keep him working. And there was he, and there was Bianca Jagger.
Wow.
Bianca Jagger was there. I was seated between Bianca Jagger and Elsa Martinelli. Now, Elsa Martinelli may not mean a lot to people today, but she was quite a well-known international actress, Italian actress at the time, and Andy Warhol was there. And anyway, we when it was a lovely night, and when the night finished, coming home in the limousine, Rudy had done, Andy Warhol had done a sketch of Rudy, and he showed it to him in the limousine. It was Andy Warhol, right? And Rudy never liked anything of himself that wasn't completely flattering. So he didn't like pictures taken of himself if he didn't look nice. So Warhol did this abstract sketch of him. Raif looked at it, screwed it up, threw it out the window.
No, you're like, stop the car. That's insane. That's insane.
That's a true story.
That's amazing. So another little cool moment just before we wrap up is the Far Lap party, because you guys I've looked at your scrapbooks, and it says the Edgleys throw parties like no one's ever thrown a party before. And I remember you guys would have, boats with fireworks going off. And I remember the days and days before
that was your
the
mother.
Party.
I mean, that was your mother. She came up with these amazing ideas to launch these productions, particularly the movie. And your mother was, as I said, she was the best in the business at promoting or coming up with those, amazing ideas.
She loves throwing a party.
Yes, we know that very well, don't we?
She was responsible for that. And she I mean, every identity in Australia would be at those parties, and from government, from
politicians to
Man
sports.
From Australia River, we had the Prime Minister there and everybody else, and it was just that's how it went, and it got worldwide coverage, not just in Australia. And some of those events got such fantastic coverage.
So was it Mum's idea for Far Lap to fly the horse around to the openings?
She may have had something to do with that. She may have had.
Is it true that one time the horse went to the wrong location?
Yeah, that's possible too.
That's what happened when I had River at home. I got taken to the wrong hospital after.
What?
Yes.
Wait,
how River was born on the bathroom floor.
Yes.
Then we got bundled into the ambulance and we got taken to the wrong hospital first. And I thought, this is just a comedy of errors today.
Yeah.
She's popping back in.
There she is.
Whoa. Sorry.
Hi.
Crash. Hi, Sky.
Hello, beautiful.
Say hi. Are the boys there? Can they come and say hello to us?
I'll go and grab. You keep talking.
Yeah. Well, we love you guys. You're amazing.
I'm so sorry Summer couldn't have been here because you would have found it very interesting.
It's Grumps. It's Grumps. Back here. Say hi. Say hi. Say hi. Hi, Grumps.
Hi, darling.
Hi. So how's the circus going, Dad? What's the next step?
Well, we're just waiting. I mean, we're not as badly affected here in Australia as you are, except Victoria. Australia has what do we do? We have 5 or 6 states and 2 territories, and most of our, apart from Victoria, it's which is in total lockdown. Like here in Queensland where we are, we only had 2 new cases yesterday, so we're very lucky. But until they give us the go, we can't. It's the safe distancing thing. We can't start again until. So they're all just sitting and waiting to start again.
So we'll just wait and hang tough.
But Victoria's a mess. Queensland's okay. West Australia's okay. South Australia's okay. New South Wales is pretty good, although they've Queensland have only just opened their borders yesterday, or today, even yesterday, to the other states. But it's not as full on as America, but it's still causing massive disruptions to life, both business life and personal life.
Is the Moscow Circus, Dad? Where can people find it on social media so they can watch and see when it goes up and live again? Are you guys on? Is the Moscow Circus on Twitter? On like where can they? Have you got a website that people can keep an eye on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's you just Google the Great Moscow Circus and you'll find it all. And Mark is the marketing manager for it, and he'll make sure everybody knows when it's up and running again.
All right. Well, we love you guys. We miss you so much. Say bye, Sky.
Lovely seeing both of you.
Yeah, she's growing up so quickly, as we said.
Say bye.
A little playmate. Hello, she's smiling now.
There you go.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Come and visit us soon, gorgeous, okay? Both of you.
I love you.
All right.
Bye, darling.
We love you. I know you're super busy, so it means the world to me, and I'm very, very happy that
no,
out,
don't be silly. I'm just talking to you. Never too busy for family. Never.
Love you guys.
Love you too, darling. See you soon.
Bye.
Good day.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye, gorgeous.
Bye, Sky. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, there's the fam. So that's my dad and beautiful Juzzy. Hang on one sec. Excuse me. Jed. And there you have it. Working mom. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. I'm going to play you a little clip and I'll get Sky sorted, and then I'm going to come and sing you a little song. So that's some amazing stories from my dad. Oh, before I want to actually show you some... Before I actually want to show you some pictures as well that they have of their amazing adventures. Say bye, Sky. Bye. 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 Okay, baby flying out. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you got it? Watch out. Bye, Sky. Bye. 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 Action-packed, my beautiful fam. Okay, so I want to show you these photos. So there's a bit of a combo. Pardon me. Here's beautiful Dad. It was hard actually to find photos nowadays because Dad and the Edgley Productions, a lot of that stuff happened before social media. So this is the circus at the moment that they do, and this is the circus at the moment. Can you guys hear me okay? Am I clear enough for you? Let me turn it up a bit. All my levels are... Can't get to my... There you go. Is that better? Is that a bit clearer? Oh, thank you, Matthew. You're a sweetheart. Let's see here. My Zoom friend said that we need to change where we put the donate button because it's a bit tricky to find. And Mum, if you're listening, I know you actually mentioned that before, and I was like, yeah, Mum, whatever, but Mum's always right. We're also going to have beautiful Jenny Edgley on the show, who is a absolute imperative part of Edgley Productions. They were an absolute power couple in their heyday, and she was the most successful promotions girl, publicity lady in Australia, hands down. This is the new circus and some of the acts that are in Dad's new circus. Oh, this is my grandma and my dad and my beautiful brother Edge. You guys have seen him before. Edgley is now, Edge is now taken over travelling around with the circus. There's Olivia Newton-John in the back there. You can see some of their other amazing productions. They did Sesame Street Live as well. Julio Iglesias. The list goes on and on. The two Ronnies. There's beautiful Justine dancing away. Isn't she amazing? Thank you guys for all your questions. I was trying to keep up with it all in between the kids and all that fun stuff. This is Dad, Moscow, with a fantastic hat. as Sky would say, hat. Justine, prima ballerina of Australian Ballet, beautiful principal dancer. This is Maya, the ballerina, prima ballerina of the Bolshoi Ballet, looking very snuggly with Dad. Dad. This is the beautiful Moscow Circus tent, that amazing picture that Edge gave me. This is the circus that's travelling around, or will be travelling around any day now when the world rights itself. Another amazing act. Edge's beautiful wife is Tatiana, and she's the star of the Moscow Circus. She's in the circus as well, and they have two beautiful kids, Maya and Danik. This is Sky today watching Justine perform Manon. I wanted to ask Juzzy what her favourite ballet was that she performed. Get them back. And then here we have my sister Sasha that came on not that long ago, and she's being taught, I believe this is a lady from the Bolshoi Ballet, because it looks like Swan Lake, and she's been taught how to do some ballet. It's Dad looking amazing. It's going to make me cry. Here's Mum and Dad meeting Princess Di, and there's another amazing photo that I think Mum's got all the really good photos, so when she comes on she can show us all the cool pickies. And I believe Mum wasn't wearing any shoes in this picture because she's a hippie at heart and she would quite often not wear shoes. Here's another cool picture from the Moscow Circus at the moment. Flare Riders. There is John Denver with Dad and Sash. Sash gets all the good pics. God damn it, Sash. This is another picture from the current Moscow Circus. Juzzy, when she was younger, doing ballet. Juzzy again, performing ballet. Isn't she amazing? Absolutely beautiful. Rudolf Nureyev and Mum and Dad. Mum went through a period of wearing army greens everywhere as well. There's Sash and the thing again. There's Dad looking famous. Juzzy. Just amazing. This is Justine teaching. Mum's a hottie. You wait till you see the other pics we got. She's amazing. We got some really cool ones. Mum was Princess Australia, and she had the what do you guys call it? The beauty pageant. You know, the scarf. What do you guys call it? And she was in the lion's cage, and she cuddled up to the lion for a photo op. And as soon as she got out of the lion's cage, the lion attacked the trainer, and everyone was a running joke because the lion was grumpy that the pretty lady left. There's Dad and me when I was a little girl before the Farlap party, and there's Mum down there. It's looking buff. There's Juzzy, I believe. So yeah, that's the crew. All right, so now guys, we have our beautiful Zoom hangouts, and we do that on Tuesday and Fridays. Our next Zoom hangout will be on Tuesday, and let's see if it went live yet. There you go. There it is. Waha. So my brother comes on every Tuesday for a jam session. Jake, are you still in the room? There was debate about whether he could make next Tuesday, however, but no matter what, we will be going on Tuesday. Here is the link to the Zoom chat, so come and hang out with me. It's Tuesday at 3 p.m, and I get to see your beautiful faces. I really love it. Love it. We get to have lots of cool hangout time. On Thursday, we have a very special guest. We're still waiting for the final confirmation. But I will be announcing that as soon as I get confirmation. I've been harassing them, no end. And then, okay, so I'll give you a little song. Okay, this is one of my original songs for your viewing pleasure. Oh, and then Saturday for subscribers, thank you to people that donated today. Matthew, really appreciate it. Thank you for people that follows. If you're new to the channel, press the follow button, because then you can see when we go live. If you'd like to subscribe, we've got lots of cool treats for subscribers. On Saturday, we all hang out in Discord after, and we have a big long phone chat, which is tonight. All right, cool. Here's a little song for you. It's a strange place if you're not from here. Put on a short skirt if you want free beer. That's all they really seem to care about here. It's what you got for me. What you got for me. What you got for me. For me. For me. What you got for me. I got a smile and a whole lot of style. You can take my hand if you wanna walk for a while. I can't promise anything, so don't hold me to it. I know what you want, and I ain't gonna do It's a strange place if you're not from here. Keep your eyes open, have no fear, 'cause that's all they really seem to care about here, is what you got for me. What you got for me. What you got for me. I see you smile, and the whole world goes wild. I take more than your hand. I'll take more than your hand. I'll take more than your hand. It's a strange place. It's a strange place. It's a strange, such a strange place. Such a strange place. Hit the road. Hit the road, hit the road, Jack. Hit the road, Jack. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. You can get addicted to a certain kind of sadness, like resignation to the end, always the end. So when you told me we did not make sense, but you said we could still be friends, well, I admit I was so glad it was over. But you didn't have to cut me off, making out it never happened. We had nothing. We had nothing, nothing, nothing. It's a strange place if you're not from here. Put on a short skirt if you want free beer, 'cause that's all they really seem to care about here, is what you got for me. What you got for me. What you got for me. There you go, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Saturday. For our subscribers on Discord, we're going to meet right now. For our subscribers on Twitch, I apologize. we will go to Discord now and hang out for about an hour. So if you're a new subscriber, just press the good old Discord button and we'll see you in the chat room. It's called Frel, yeah. And I'm going to take you out with a cool little do. It's going to be a little
Really just, I just
hashtag.
need one thing. And then that one thing turns into 2, which turns into 5, which turns...
Likes to be loud, that Twitch, doesn't it? There you go. So we'll be chiming in again on Tuesday. Going to have an amazing guest on Thursday. But for now, we'll meet our beautiful subscribers in Discord and sending you lots and lots of love, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if you've liked the channel, please share it with all your loved ones, and even the friends near and far would help as well. Bye, Kappa. Love you. Thank you to all my beautiful family that chimed in. My sister came in. Beautiful Cat, Mom, Jake, Edge. Here's a cool little trailer for a film that I did. Lots of love. Bye.
Welcome to your new celebrity franchise. Open the door to the rest of your life.
4, 3, 2, 1, ready, go.
Oh, I'm gonna love all over you.
X, what is your status?
If you want to be successful, love what you're doing, submit. Submit. Product Flash.
No, you are the best friends.
You're bringing social media to the next level. Be famous.
I wish I was you.
The ultimate influencer. The ultimate celebrity. The ultimate you. You will have all the friends you've been dreaming of. Make their choices for them. You've opened the door to the rest of your life. Fame is just a heartbeat